woke up grumpy. And she said, no, I let him sleep till he wakes up on his own.
Yep.
Ribbit, ribbit. There's your frog joke. All right. We've been studying this. It's not always like this.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, but on Tuesdays and Thursdays, it's not like this. All right, so we've been studying. Let me catch everybody up. We've been studying Exodus. We've been studying the plagues. Actually, the Exodus is not only about the plagues, but we're going through the plagues, looking at each plague. Last week, you'll remember we had the plague on livestock, right? They got the sores, and then the people got the sores, the boils, and so we're about halfway through. There were 10 of these, so we're about halfway through. I think we're actually coming through 6. So each one seems to be getting progressively more impactful. Okay? And I use that word instead of worse on purpose, because one can argue that not having fresh water to drink for a week is pretty bad, right? So they seem to be getting more and more impactful. We've just got to the point where we've actually seen some of the animals die. Not widespread, but it was there. So we're going to pick up our story now in Exodus chapter 9. All right. I'm reading my scripture on the screen, and what I will read is New Living Translation. My King James is right here, so I have it always handy. But the New Living Translation saves me a little bit of time because... You okay, bro? Okay.
I'm afraid I what you say.
Yeah, I know. Since the smoke was coming off, I was like, oh my gosh, I want to make sure you're okay. It saves me some time in modernizing the language for us, okay? Because a lot of times, if you read something in the King James, then you have to go back, okay, so, not only do I have a translation from Hebrew or Greek into English, but I have it into 400-year-old English, right? So it's not really the English that we're accustomed with today, so we have to modernize. So this helps with that, and just as an FYI, I will point out, I say this in the King James. There are places where it actually reads better in the King James than it does in some of the more modern translations. I don't know if they overthink it or what the deal is. So, all right, so we're going to pick up the story. We've just finished the last plague. Verse 13, we're going to start the next. So the Lord said to Moses, "Get up early in the morning and stand before Pharaoh and tell him, this is what the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, says. Let my people go." Right? This is in the movie. Yep. Right? Charlton Heston. Let my people go. Right? Mm-hmm. Let my people go so they can worship me. If you don't, I will send more plagues on you and your officials and your people, and then you will know there was no one like me in all the earth. By now, I could have lifted my hand and struck you and your people with a plague to wipe you off the face of the earth. But I have spared you for a purpose, to show you my power and to spread my fame throughout the earth. Hang on, I lost my clicker here. Click. There we go. But you still lord it over my people, refuse to let them go. So tomorrow at this time, I will send a hailstorm, more devastating than any in all the history of Egypt. Quick, order your livestock and your servants to come in from the fields to find shelter. Any person or animal left outside will die when the hail falls. Okay? Some of Pharaoh's officials were afraid because of what the Lord had said. They quickly brought their servants and livestock in from the fields. But those who paid no attention to the word of the Lord left theirs out in the open. Verse 22. Then the Lord said to Moses, lift your hand toward the sky, so hail may fall on the people, the livestock, and all the plants throughout the land of Egypt. So Moses lifted his staff toward the sky. The Lord sent thunder and hail, and lightning flashed toward the earth. The Lord sent a tremendous hailstorm against all the land of Egypt. Never in all the history of Egypt had there been a storm like that, with such devastating hail, and get this, continuous lightning. A lot of people will gloss over that. It left all of Egypt in ruins. The hail struck down everything in the open field. People, animals, plants alike, even the trees were destroyed. The only place, so once again now, we're seeing this separation, okay? The only place without hail was the region of Goshen, where the people of Israel lived. And then Pharaoh quickly summoned Moses and Aaron. This time I have sinned, he confessed. The Lord is the righteous one, and my people and I are wrong. Please beg the Lord to end this terrifying thunder and hail. We've had enough. I will let you go. You don't need to stay any longer. All right, Moses replied. As soon as I leave the city, I will lift my hands and pray to the Lord. The thunder and the hail will stop, and you will know that the earth belongs to the Lord. Right? That key phrase right there. Because remember what we talked about a couple of weeks ago, right? Each one of these plagues was designed to attack a religious belief of the Egyptians. They had deep spiritual reverence for livestock, animals, right? So the plagues on the cows and the camels and all that, that really, I mean, they go pray to their gods, but they got no response, okay? He said, so as soon as I leave the city, the thunder and hail will stop. You will know that the earth belongs to the Lord. But I know that you and your officials still do not fear the Lord God. All the flax and barley were ruined by the hail because the barley had formed heads and the flax was budding. But the wheat and the emmer wheat were spared because they had not yet sprouted from the ground. And so Moses left Pharaoh's court, went out of the city, where he lifted up his hands to the Lord. The thunder and hail stopped, and the downpour ceased. Okay, I wanted to read the whole story. I didn't want to break it up, right? So we have a continuous timeline there. All right. Oh, wait a minute, I forgot one. Sorry.
Yeah,
I'm not finished reading the whole story yet.
I know, you're not done.
It's Becca's fault. She let me finish. She didn't say anything.
Okay.
And when Pharaoh saw that the rain, hail, and thunder had stopped, he and his officials sinned again. And Pharaoh again became stubborn because his heart was hard. Pharaoh refused to let the people leave, just as the Lord had predicted through Moses. Okay, so we see now that Moses is going to go back to Pharaoh, and he's going to call for the plague of hail. Okay? And so what we've seen here is a pattern with Pharaoh. Pharaoh stands it for as long as he can. He said, okay, fine, I give up. And then as soon as it stops, he's like, yeah, never mind. I don't give up so much. And so they have to do this again. So each plague gets, again, subjectively worse. Okay? And so now we've come to...
More impactful.
More impactful, that is correct. God's going to up the ante here. Okay? Now, the first plague, the plague of on the beasts, some of the animals died, but not all. Okay? So one can assume that the weaker animals, the older animals that caught the whatever it was, they suffered a little bit, they died. But if you were strong and healthy, it didn't, not so much, right? But now God's upping the ante. And so what we see is the first time in this discussion, God's telling Pharaoh that, look, I know what you're doing, right? You're giving up so that I'll stop. And then when I stop, you go back. You go back on your word, right? And we talked about... in the past, in the last couple of 3 weeks, we've talked about the picture that we have now of Pharaoh's character, right? He's a manipulator, right? And we all have known people like that. In fact, some of us might have been people like that before. Don't laugh, brother. Don't you give it away when you do that. We might have been people like that before Christ entered into our lives, right? We say anything to get someone else to do what we want them to do. Typically, it's something that's not in their best interest. Because why? Because we only care about our best interests, right? And that's a condition of the human race. The curse that we're under, right, is we are self-centered. We were having a little bit of a discussion about that before service tonight. I asked the question, how would you define evil? And one of the responses was, well, it would be self-centeredness, right? It would be self-centered. That's not a bad answer. But if you were to go and say, in a scientific arena, and say, how do you define cold? And somebody said, the absence of heat, the absence of warmth. That's how they do it, right? So now I ask you, what is evil? Well, evil is then the absence of good. How do we define good? God is the measure. God is the standard of what is good. We don't know what good is except that we look at God. Right? And even Jesus is what we were talking about before. Even Jesus said, he said, you called me good, but there is none good but the Father. He is the ultimate standard of good. That's why Paul would say, I press toward the mark of the high calling of Jesus Christ, but I haven't reached it. I hold that up as my standard. I try to live that way. Every day I try to do better, but I haven't reached it yet. And that's the story of us all, correct? At least I hope, right? So, but here he says, Pharaoh, I know what you're doing, and look, this is going to keep happening. I'm going to keep I'm going to keep nailing you until we get this right. So God provides a reality check. Okay? So God tells him outright, I could have already killed you. If I had wanted your life, you'd be dead already. Right? Oh, we love that in the movies, don't we? Right? Where the hero says, no, if I wanted you dead, you'd be dead already. It's just where you get it from. God's telling Pharaoh, if I had wanted to kill you, I'd have done it already. But I have a different motive here. Right? So what motive could he possibly have for continuing to basically spank him, but not hurt him too bad? Right? So, question. And don't look up here because I already have the answer up here. No, it's fine. Question. So the children of Israel have become a huge population living in Egypt, right? And so as they have lived in Egypt, what is the one thing that they have never had to form or to build? An army, right? Egypt had an army. Egypt defended the borders. They lived inside. So they've never had to form an army. Now they're going to come out. So guess what they're going to come out with? We'll read about this in a few chapters. They're going to come out with the wealth of Egypt. Now remember when we started, you remember how I started our study of the Exodus? Remember that? I started with the story of Joseph. Right? Because I basically was telling y'all, we can't study about how the Israelites came out of Egypt until we understand how they got in, right? And so you remember Joseph, if you remember your Sunday school, right? The coat of many colors, right? He had a coat of many colors. They sold him into slavery, and he ends up going through Potiphar's house and the prison, and he ends up as Pharaoh's right-hand man. Now this is 400 years before what we're reading now happened, right? And so, how did he end up as Pharaoh's right-hand man? You remember Pharaoh had a dream. He said, I saw four cows come up out of the Nile. They were fat cows. They were healthy cows. And they were cows that were just beautiful to look at. And then I saw 7 skinny cows come out of the Nile, and they ate the fat cows. And they ate the fat cows. I know, right? They ate the fat cows, and they got even skinnier. Right? And so Joseph said, I understand what this is. He said, you're going to have 7 good years. And I mean, you're going to have cows and corn and wheat like you've never had before. And then you're going to have 7 years like you ain't never had before, where there's nothing, right? And we did a little bit of the math, right? And how much they were getting. And Joseph said, put some of it away, save it up. They basically took they were getting at least twice, we figured, at least twice normal every harvest. And Joseph was putting about 30% of the extra away. And then when the 7 bad years hit, what did he do? This is long before Democrat. Okay? So there was no welfare. He sold it. He sold it. He said, I got plenty of corn. Come one, come all, bring your money. And when they said, we got no money, he said, you got cows and camels and sheep, ain't you? And they said, yeah. And he said, yeah, bring them, I'll take them. Right? And when they didn't have any livestock left, he said, well, you got farms, don't you? Houses? Yeah, bring it. I'll take that. Egypt became very rich. Very rich. Remember what I told you then is I said, consider that as being the first bank of Egypt. And God was investing because he knew this was coming. And so when they march out of the city, they're going to take with them all of that wealth. Whatever Joseph acquired and 400 years of interest. Consider it back pay. Okay? They would go, and like I said, we'll read about this. They would go everyone to his neighbor, and they say, hey, that great big ring you got, I thought it's so pretty. Can I borrow that? And the Egyptians would go, what? Sure, here. Hey, I'm fixing to leave. I need a sword. You got a really fine sword. Can I borrow that? Sure, right? And they handed over all this stuff. Now, the children of Israel will go out, right? They're going to go into the wilderness. And there are other nations out there. And so what do you call somebody with no military skills, no self-defense training, and a whole bunch of valuable stuff?
An easy target.
An easy target. A victim.
Yeah.
Right? A victim. Right? And so when they leave, they're going to have all of this. And so what God is doing, and he actually says, I'm building my reputation, right? He wants the world to understand he fights for them. For them to come against Israel is for them to make war on heaven. Now, you say, well, man, that's kind of, think about this for a minute. I'm going to fast forward even further. Y'all remember the story of Joshua and Jericho, right? They marched around the city. Joshua marched around the city, blew the trumpet. That's a trumpet, by the way. Isn't that neat? So they blew the trumpet and the walls fell down, right? But do you remember there was one woman and her family that was saved alive, right? Her house didn't fall. But you remember why?
She helped the spies.
Because she helped the spies. What did she tell the spies? When they first showed up, she said she hid them and she said, your fame and the reputation has reached us even here in Jericho. What reputation would that be? The one that God is beginning to build right here, right? When those foreign countries saw, and that he continues to build it, right? It's just not a one-time event, but this is where it starts. And he starts to build it. And the Israelites, did you hear what they did to Egypt? What their God did to Egypt? Don't mess with them. Okay? And that's what God is basically saying here. He said, I'm building a reputation I'm building a reputation that even 40 years from now, they will still be talking about it, right? Rahab will tell them, oh yeah, we knew you were coming. We've heard the stories, the fears in all of the land because of you, okay? And so for now, though, coming back to the present, there's devastation in Egypt that has never been seen, right? How many of y'all lived through Harvey? How many of y'all were here with Harvey? How many of y'all had ever seen rain like that? Ever?
Nope.
Devastation. See, and that's what he's promising them. In your entire history, you have never seen anything like this. How many of y'all have ever heard of a place called Indianola? Okay. Overachiever over here.
I happened to read the story like 2 weeks ago. That's why it showed up on like a Texas history social media thing.
So before the 1860s, I think, 1870s, it's back in the early 1800s. Can anybody name me the number one port in the state of Texas? It was Indianola. That's where all the ships came in. It's down there in the flat below Corpus Christi. Right? There was a huge hurricane. Now, this was back in the 1800s, so nobody knows how big the hurricane was because they didn't keep records.
Right.
But 3 or 4 weeks after the hurricane went through, neighboring towns, they said, has anybody heard about Indianola? They just sent in a telegram, no, we don't. They sent people out to search. You know what they found when they got to where Indianola was supposed to be? Nothing. A stick here, a plank there. The entire time was wiped out, gone. Like God just went.
Yeah.
Okay? And you know who became the number one port in the state of Texas at that moment? No, Galveston. Galveston was that was the one. Until there was this big hurricane in 1900, right? And some of the eyewitnesses' accounts, I listened to a eyewitness account. She was a very elderly lady at the time. She was a little girl. And they lived in a 3-story house right down in there off of, just off Seawall Boulevard. It wasn't Seawall Boulevard then because there was no seawall. But they lived in a 3-story house, and she remembers the water coming up and Daddy chopping holes in the first floor. They all went up to the second floor and chopped holes in the first floor so the water would come up through the floor instead of float the house. And then they all went to the 3rd floor. And the water didn't come up into the 3rd floor. And she remembers sitting in the windowsill on the 3rd floor and being able to look into the eyes of tugboat captains going down the street, getting their tugboats back out into the bay. That's a lot of water, right? And you know what became the number one port in the state of Texas after 1900 and Galveston was wiped out or nearly wiped out?
The one that's there now.
Houston. Port of Houston. That's when the Port of Houston was born, okay? So we have had localized devastation that we have in our recent history or that we have lived through. Because Harvey, remember where Harvey made landfall?
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah, down there below Corpus. Or right at Corpus, right around Corpus. Came in, waded ashore, said, I don't like Corpus, and came up the coast.
And then kind of hung around a little bit.
Right? And we thought we knew about rain. I thought I knew about rain because I lived through a little tropical storm called Alicia, and one
1983.
yeah, and there was one before that. I can't.
There's Allison.
This was a long time ago. It flooded downtown. It put about 30 inches of water in the medical center. It was never a hurricane. It was just a tropical storm. We thought, nothing could ever be that bad again, ever. Hello, Harvey.
Was it Ike?
No, way before Ike. This was 70, 78, 79. And so just utter day. Now, usually a hurricane comes in with winds, right? But the floodwaters. So Harvey wrecked us, right? So I'm just saying, this devastation, though, so think about this. Think about Harvey, since we all have Harvey, a recent memory of Harvey, and how much water there was. Did anybody get any water in their house from Harvey?
No, we're 4 feet off the ground.
We did. No, we did. Yes, we did. No, we didn't. Make up your mind. Which one?
I remember.
Oh, you did.
Imagine. I know we had. If you didn't get water in the house, you had a couple of.
Ran off, so.
Right, but you had a couple of feet in the yard.
Yes,
towards the
it
street,
looked
right?
like the river.
Yes.
And you know what the news said? The news said, "Oh yeah, down there on the coast, they're having a really bad time of it. But here in Dallas, we're in a heat wave." Now, think about this. What if Harvey had flooded the entire state of Texas that way?
Yeah, that'd be crazy.
Okay? We can't think of that, right?
Yeah.
That's the entire country of Egypt, right? The entire nation, everywhere within its borders, is going to see this event. Okay? Okay,
Yeah,
I'm
it's huge.
trying to give you some scope here, okay? So he threatens a hailstorm. So imagine a hailstorm. So what's hail? Ice, right? What's quick poll, try and keep everybody interested and awake, right? What's the biggest hailstone you've ever seen? Golf ball?
Yes.
Golf ball? Okay, big marble.
Big marble.
Big marble. Okay. Anybody ever seen softball size?
No.
Baseball size?
On TV.
Heard
but
about it.
not-
Heard
Yeah.
about it. Heard about it. Okay.
Outside with my bat.
So I did some research. I did some reading. Okay. And while the size is not mentioned in Scripture, it doesn't say softball size hail. The reason it doesn't do that is because your average Egyptian didn't know what softball was.
Yes. Yes.
Nor does it know what
Makes
a golf
sense.
ball was.
Right? They didn't know what a golf ball was. So, hey. But the size is not mentioned here. So I'm going to speculate that it was grapefruit, right, or softball, a baseball, or at least a tennis ball size chunk of ice coming down, not for a few minutes, not for a half an hour, not for an hour, continuous falling of hail for at least a day, maybe 2 or 3. Constant pounding. Now, also keep in mind, how many of y'all have been in the house?
Yeah.
Gets kind of dark, right? You hear thunder off. Boom, 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 boom. You're like, oh, hey, it's gonna rain. And then all of a sudden, boom, you're gonna jump out of your skin. You go, oh my God, what? Oh my God, right? Because that lightning struck somewhere close to you, and that thunder was just as close.
Yeah.
Right? So imagine that kind of thunder. Boom, boom. Now, what causes the thunder? Lightning. What do we see in the Scripture? Lightning continuously. Boom, boom, boom. Anybody ever been near a lightning strike?
Yes.
I mean, close enough to see the flash?
It like shakes.
The flash of blue light and the pop when it hits the ground, and then the thunder immediately on top of it,
And then the TV explodes.
and then the TV explodes.
My baby
What do you,
boy was-
didn't you know you're not supposed to watch TV in a thunderstorm? Oh. So the hail is falling, the racket that hail makes coming down on top of the constant flash of lightning and the thunder, the thump of that thunder again and again and again. This was, you want to talk about a war zone. This was a war zone, okay? And so hail. Now, at these sizes, grapefruit, baseball, tennis balls, hail can reach over 100 miles per hour. And because of the weight, the inertia, it can land with considerable force. Okay? Now, sometimes when hail comes, it comes as a solid, round, spherical object. Sometimes it comes with spikes.
Yeah.
Right? It just kind of depends on, you know how hail forms, right? The rain comes down, but it never gets to the ground. It gets blown back up, and then it comes down and it gets blown back up. And it depends on how many of these trips it makes is how big it gets and whether it's got spikes or it's just a solid ball, right? So we don't know. I figure that if there's any kind of shape hail could take, it took it. There was smooth round hail. There was spiky hail. There was hail with bouffant hairdos. You know, I mean, there was just everything, right? There was everything. So hail can land with some significant force. Okay, the kind of damage that's described. Now, I know when we were reading the story, and it started talking about, the barley was destroyed, and the flax was destroyed. And the trees were ruined. I know everybody in here went, oh, you know, like, why do I care, right? Because that's our clue. For hail to do that kind of damage, to be able to kill an animal or a human being if it strikes them, to destroy an entire crop in the field, we are talking about a significant size of hail, at least tennis ball size.
A lot of it.
And a lot of it, right? So that description gives us an idea of the hail and the length of time that it fell, okay? Remember, like I said before, it's not a local storm. How many of y'all stepped out on the back porch or been in a car driving down the highway and you look way off over yonder and it's all dark and you can see the gray come all the way to the ground? You go, oh, it's raining over there. Yeah, but it ain't raining over here. This was rain everywhere, okay? Everywhere. If you knew somebody in Amarillo and you called them up and say, hey, what's going on? And when it's hailing here, right? Well, yeah, it's hailing here too. That's a big hailstorm, okay? So this is more severe than anything ever experienced. And God told him that. He said, this is going to be, in your entire history, you've never experienced anything like this, okay? This is a wake-up call. And he warned them. He said, get everybody indoors. Get your animals indoors, okay? Don't leave anything outside, okay? Except where the Hebrews live. Where the Israelites live in the land of Goshen, not one single drop of rain. No lightning, no thunder, okay? Now, I'm sure they can hear it.
No
I know
hail.
that's what I was
Yeah, there's no hail,
Yeah.
right? That sun may have even been shining there,
Yeah.
right? And they're all standing outside looking over there going, woo, man, it's sure rough over yonder. I'm not going to work today, Ethel. Okay? And so, once again, God draws the distinction. He said, it's going to do this everywhere, but the land of Goshen. Now, you remember from the days of Joseph, why the Pharaoh told him, you bring your parents, bring your brothers, bring their families, put them in the land of Goshen. You know why he put them there? Because they didn't want them amongst them. Because they were sheep herders. And you know what they say about sheep herders. I don't know. I'm not a sheep herder. I thought maybe y'all know. No. They smell like sheep. Right? So, here in that smelly place, right? It ain't hailing there. All right? God issues a warning, right? He says, bring in your livestock. Don't let anybody... Now, you got to understand that back in this day, you didn't come in from the fields every night necessarily. Right? Especially if you were herding animals, but you didn't. Servants just stayed out there. Say, hey, especially during the harvest or while you were, hoeing for the weeds. Make sure I get that out there. Okay. So you stayed out there, you slept in the field, and you got up and went again. He said, go out there and get all your people and get them in. Get your animals in the barn. They'll be protected in the barn. Okay. And so he issues the warning, bring in your livestock. Now, we see that some Egyptians have seen enough, right? Some of them had begun to realize that whoever this God is, he is serious person. And so Moses keeps calling it, I'm bringing my people in. It doesn't mean that they're believers, okay? Doesn't mean that they've converted, but they've seen enough to understand that I don't know who this guy is, but if he said it, I'm gonna take advantage of it, okay? And so, but a lot of them still trust in Pharaoh and the gods of Egypt, okay? The gods of Egypt. They can't turn loose of their belief system, even though it's been directly attacked. You say, well, that's silly. I mean, you got all that kind of evidence, right? And yet you're still clinging on to those old superstitions. Old superstitions.
They have hundreds of gods. At least one of them should do something. Right?
One of them should do something, right? But how many of y'all been around somebody who'll say something and then they'll go, oh, knock on wood.
Yeah.
You know what that is, right? That it's back from the days when knocking on wood meant you knocked on a tree, and you knocked on a tree because that's where the demons lived. And if you said something and they heard it, they'd come out and get you for boasting, right? And so you'd knock on that wood, knock on wood, because apparently that didn't aggravate them. No, I got right. How many do you know? Maybe you don't know any, but how many Christians do you know carrying around a rabbit's foot? I don't know that that's so popular anymore, but when I was growing up, it was on a keychain. You had it on your keys, and if you wanted to do something, you wanted to be lucky, pull that rabbit's foot out and you'd rub that rabbit's foot. And I always wanted to ask the question, what makes that rabbit's foot lucky? Because it obviously wasn't lucky for the rabbit, because he lost it. He's missing all 4 feet. He's sitting at home somewhere in a wheelchair. Because all 4 of his feet are in somebody else's pockets.
I think you know that.
Think you got 8?
Yeah. Especially
Okay.
at Lonnie's house.
Yeah.
So even in our culture today, right, we tend to not trust God. We tend to trust other things, all right? And so we see in the story, crops in the field were destroyed, trees picked clean of fruit, leaves, broken branches, and anything living that was out in the fields died. Right? I mean, imagine a rock-solid tennis ball-sized chunk of ice coming down at 100 miles an hour and hitting you on the head. And so you're like,
Yeah.
oh, that was, and then it hit again.
Again.
And then it hit again.
I'm gonna tell you something, getting hit with a golf ball will knock you out too. I don't know that. Shannon hit somebody at the old Channel View Court, and it knocked him cold out and split his head wide open.
Yeah.
Oh.
But it didn't kill him.
No.
But if he'd hit him with a few more golf balls, it might.
Probably would have.
Okay. So, and then like we talked about before, thunder, huge claps, exploding right overhead, rumbling for minutes on end, duration of the storm. This was an event. Right? This was no, oh look, it's hail, get some in a glass, put it in the freezer so I can show Meemaw when she comes in. No, this was like, please, no more hail. Okay? And Pharaoh calls for Moses. He utters the phrase, I have sinned, right? This does not mark a move toward repentance on Pharaoh's part. So the phrase that he used, I have sinned, would be more aptly interpreted as I have underestimated, I have misjudged, or I made a mistake. Right? So how many of you have ever used that term? Oh, I made a mistake. It was an error in judgment. Right? Learned, won't do that again, except Pharaoh's not learning, right? One of his one of his character flaws, right? Not a statement of contrition, just an acknowledgement of a mistake in judgment. And he asked, pray to end this terrifying display. He said, you got to pray, and you got to end this, right? And he promises whatever he needs to promise to make it go away, right? I'm going to tell you, I'll kind of go out on a limb here. Pharaoh's a lot like that husband, right, that will promise anything to keep you from leaving. No, I'll never do it again, honey, right? He's an abusive, manipulative man. And the abusive, manipulative men or women, I don't want to leave y'all out,
Do it again.
interested in fairness here, that's the way we are.
They'll do it again.
They'll do it again. Right? Now Moses' answer is curious, all right, and I've always found this to be curious. He tells him, now, so let's back up a minute. Pharaoh realizes he's got to stop this, and what does he do? He calls for Moses to come to him. So where was Moses? So this has been going on long enough for Moses to leave and go home. Moses is staying with a Hebrew. Where are they? In the land of Goshen, down south.
Yeah.
He calls for Moses, come back in here. I need to talk to you. Moses comes back. How is Moses able to walk through this hailstorm?
Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
Huh?
Divine intervention.
Yeah.
How is Moses able? Because it won't hail on the Jews.
Yeah.
So while most of them are in the land of Goshen, I think wherever Moses goes, God's got a little umbrella over him. Right? Yeah, it just.
got a little brown circle going around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He might have had a break in the clouds and the sun shining down. Right? How many? There's a video of a guy, and I don't know how in the world he got here. I don't know. Maybe he fell out of an airplane. But he's out in the wilderness, right? I guess he's on the plains of Africa, and the wildebeest, or not the wildebeest, but the Cape buffalo. There's a herd stampeding right at him, and he's looking at him. He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna die!" And he gets down like this, and man, they're rushing by him like this, rushing by him, and he finally looks up, and he's like, "None of them are running over me." And he looks up, and there's one old bull standing right in front of him. Right, face to face, and that bull's standing there, and all them they're going around that bull, not going around him, they're going around that bull, but they go around him, right? And so when it's all said and done, the bull kind of snorts and winks and goes on around him, and he's saved alive, right? God is protecting Moses, got his hand over Moses, right? He's like, don't worry, you go wherever you need to, no hail going to hit you, right? So Moses was able to walk through hail to get to Pharaoh. All right? And so, but he tells him, he says, okay, as soon as I...
Ooh. You did it.
Yeah.
I didn't hear no thunder, so, okay. He says, I'm going to go outside the city and I'm going to pray. Hail is falling, anyone outside is dying. If Pharaoh was paying attention, he'd realize it's not just the land of Goshen that's being exempted. Hebrews, yeah. That's from the Hebrides. Yeah. I'm missing the W there. I'm gonna have to go fix that. Okay. So it's not just in the land. Okay. It's the Hebrews themselves. They're protected as well. Okay? Like he had an umbrella. So Moses goes outside the city. He's standing there, hail falling everywhere but on him, and he prays. And the hail stops. Okay? And of course we see the damage assessment. The flax and the barley are destroyed. This is the first time that we have got a sense of what time of year this is. Okay? So we all know what's coming, right? If you've studied this before, you know what's coming. Passover's coming. We know when Passover is. Right?
Yes.
Okay. Everybody's like, oh. I know. I'm almost done. Right? Passover is in late March, early April-ish. Depending on when the new moon is that particular month. Okay? So we know that Passover is coming. So this is all in the run-up to that. But now we've seen here for the first time additional evidence, right? And so we see that the barley's been planted and has just come up, beginning to bloom. Flax also. So what we see is that this is going to be February to early March. That's when that would have happened in that part of the world, okay? It also mentioned that the wheat crops, and emmer wheat, by the way, is just a type of wheat. The wheat crops have been planted, but they haven't come up yet. So they survived. Hail didn't bother them. They were still underground. But anything that was up got shredded. Okay, trees, all that, okay? So, barley with new heads, they indicate early February. They're completely crushed. The wheat crops are still in the ground. So people would have been thinking, right, well, at least we still have something to live on, right? The wheat's going to come up, and we're going to be able to have something to live on. But that's where we're going to see the next plague coming in. As soon as hail and thunder stop, Pharaoh changes his mind. So one thing you can say about him, he is consistent.
He sounds like a kid.
He is consistent. You can count on him, right? All right, so that's all I've got for this week. Look at the time. We're going to get out early. Tune in next week when we hear our hero say, right?
What's brown, green,
And green and hops. And hint, it's
not
not a frog. Okay?
I know what it is.